and welcome to the University of ADHD Podcast. My name is Emma Leavesley, I'm your host, and this first episode I thought I would use to just give a bit of background information about myself and also give you a bit of information about the podcast itself. Who am I then? I help students with ADHD excel at college and university by using education, hypnotherapy and CBT, or cognitive behavioural therapy. My aim is to help people with ADHD to use the way their brain works to their advantage and to manage symptoms. I don't just work with people who've got a formal diagnosis of ADHD. I also work with people who may be on the waiting list or haven't got a diagnosis. Maybe they don't want a diagnosis. When I left school, I went to college doing music technology, and after that I worked as a GP receptionist. Sometime later, I then went on to uni doing sound and multimedia technology, and I just remember how difficult that was. I got there and I was sat in an electronics lecture, and I just remember thinking, I'm too thick for this. How does anybody follow this? What's going on? Basically, I was just worried that I'd let everybody down who had faith in me, all the people who came to my leaving drinks when I left my hometown and went on to sunny Birmingham. And yeah, I didn't think I'd ever pass. But I did. I kind of did it without reading many textbooks. I preferred the practical stuff rather than the academic writing. I struggled quite a bit with that. I got a 2-1, but me being a bit of a perfectionist, I wasn't happy with that. I wanted a first. After I left uni, me and my partner bought a house. I didn't know what to do. I worked in a warehouse, and then I decided to do my teacher training. So I decided, because college was such a positive experience for me compared to school, that I wanted to work in further education. So I went and did my teacher training. I was basically still doing the all-nighters. That's how I do assignments, but I got better at the academic writing. Then I taught creative media at a college for 8 years. My son was born in 2007. He's 16 now, and we've been through pretty much the entire school system with him having ADHD. I've not got a diagnosis of ADHD, by the way. I would say we've been let down by the education system to some extent because he's struggled with his ADHD, and together we've come up with solutions to get him help with studying, and I've come up with some ADHD-friendly teaching and learning strategies that work with him, and they worked with my students as well when I was a lecturer. When I was working at the college, I enjoyed the teaching side of things. I really loved that. I taught creative media, a subject I really loved, and basically, what I didn't like was the political side of things. I spent a lot of time doing paperwork that didn't benefit the students, didn't benefit me, and less time being able to plan lessons, and I got to the point where I just had enough. I decided I wanted to work in mental health because I'd had CBT for depression and anxiety, and that seemed like something that I wanted to do. So I ended up training to be a hypnotherapist, and this was completely by accident. So I enrolled on a course to be a counsellor, and the first year of it was hypnotherapy, and I didn't think I'd be interested in it. I was quite sceptical about it, but realised how amazing it was, and we had to practice on each other in the class, and actually it was life-changing. I got over my claustrophobia. I made many changes in my life that were really positive and beneficial. After I qualified, I set up my own private practice. 2014 was when I left teaching. Everything got too much and the stress was terrible. I left teaching and got a job as a mental health support worker. It's not a well-paid job, so I decided to work for an agency instead, where the money was a bit better, and this was amazing because I got to work in all kinds of interesting places. I've worked in prisons, children's homes, mental health hospitals, in supported living, and at this time I studied my master's in psychology. I then started working as a GP receptionist again, and while doing this I did a postgraduate certificate in psychiatry. This was supposed to be another master's, but a lot was going on with my life and my son, so I stopped it at a PG cert, but I learned a lot from it. Through this time as well, I was diagnosed with bipolar, and while I definitely agree with that diagnosis, there's still some symptoms that I've got that are constant, which aren't explained by that. But as I said, I've never gone down the route of having a formal diagnosis of ADHD, so I wouldn't actually tell people that I've got ADHD, but I can certainly relate to a lot of the struggles. So then I trained as an assistant practitioner in mental health. I worked for the GP practice, but also for the local adult ADHD service for the NHS. NHS. And with that, I did CBT for anxiety and depression for the GP practice, but I co-created, and this is a really long-winded title, a psychosocial intervention for people with ADHD. That's just a fancy name for what's known as psychoeducation, so teaching people about the condition and also strategies that help. I've run this for around about 3 years now, and I also run a support group for people with ADHD. It's a group thing, it's all online, and I really enjoy this. So one thing I did find with doing the psychosocial intervention was that there was a lot of information that we had to put across, and we were only given 4 weeks to do it, so each cohort was 4 weeks, and a lot of people struggled with this. A lot of people expressed that they wanted one-to-one help, and a lot of people said that this needed to be for over a lot longer period than 4 weeks. So with this, I decided to combine my hypnotherapy, CBT and the education, and I started Rethink ADHD. It's something that I really love doing, but also I thought, why not tie in more of my life experience? And I then decided, okay, I'll put my teaching experience in the mix as well. So because I've always worked with further education and I've got an experience of being a student in higher education, including postgrad, I thought, I realise how much students with ADHD struggle. I'm going to help students with ADHD, and here I am. Other things about me, I've played drums in a band. I always end up doing stupid charity challenges like mountain treks. I've done a half marathon, done charity boxing. My next one is going to be a dog sled challenge in Arctic Sweden. So what's all this about then, this podcast? I'm going to be talking about a lot of topics, things to do with ADHD, things to do with education, particularly further and higher education, but I'm also going to make this useful for maybe younger students as well, so people still at school. So there could be some of the strategies that I talk about here that could be useful for that as well. I'm also doing some teacher training because I think that teachers don't always... I'm also looking at doing teacher training for school teachers to help them better manage students with ADHD. Also notice the signs, get more people diagnosed and get more people treated. But also from my experience of my son having ADHD and going through school, there's a lot of improvements that could be made, and I really want to help do that. You can check out my website, rethink-adhd.co.uk, for details about that if you're a teacher. So this podcast will also include tips on careers, tips on studying, and also I'll be chatting to guests about various topics to do with ADHD and education, and also have a bit of fun, so there will be some fun topics in there. The episodes will be released Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 9 p.m, so they'll be available on Podbean, YouTube, and all the usual podcast formats. So if you'd like to be a guest on my show, please get in touch. If you want to suggest any topics that you want me to cover, please get in touch. If you've got any questions that I can answer on air that could be beneficial to others, get in touch. So if you go to my website, rethink-adhd.co.uk, you can find my contact details, and you can also subscribe to my mailing list because I send details of free stuff, offers, and I've got some courses coming up in the new year which may be of interest to you. So the next episode is going to be all about ADHD, VAST, and also diagnosis and identity. I'll see you then. Don't forget to subscribe.